Welcome to the Around the NFL Twitter show. We are back. Can you believe it? On your screens all around the world. The NFL handle giving us a little pop. Dan Hansis joined in a city filled with heroes in bunkers. Mark Sessler, Chris Wessling, Greg Rosenthal. What is up, boys?
Hey, Dan.
What's up? This is fun. Mark, you're excited. Little butterflies in the stomach knowing that potentially millions of people watching right now.
Yeah, I mean, of course. I do the old Peter Brady freeze up on screen thing. And if that happens, I'll just absolutely go totally dark for the next 30, 40 minutes, and you'll have to handle the show without me. How will you survive?
I don't know. Greg, this is a bit of a miracle in technology. This is a live program, live with colleagues all across the Southland here. And a shout out to all the people that make it happen. Jason Kleiman, our producer, Zach Saley, Amanda Carey, Kat Chan-Smith, Dave Feldman, just a huge group effort. But maybe we shouldn't be patting ourselves on the back just yet. Maybe this is a huge disaster, and then our boss, Matt Schneider, will get very angry with us.
It's a lot of bouquets to be thrown out 1 minute into the show, but I do like your use of Southland. That's a Los Angelino local, and our listeners have been getting 5 shows a week from us, and I think the everything we're hearing is like, that's not enough. We need more of the Around the NFL podcast.
I mean, honestly, what else are we going to do? Mark, there are children running all over the place. Wes, you got a pregnant lady that wants to send you out for cheeseburgers. Greg, it's just a matter of time before we see your children. They usually come on to your and sit on your lap at some point during a program. This gives us a little bit of a peace in what is not a very peaceful time. Let's be honest.
I think it's helped us as much as anything. There are 2 options in my household. It is 1, Febreze, my 9 and 7-year-old, as they scurry about, or 2, do this show with the 4 or 5 of us. So I'm taking 2.
And what is this show? This show is. It is, Wes. This show is, if you love the podcast, and I imagine if you're watching this, you're probably aware of the Around the NFL podcast. We're doing a 5 days a week during the quarantine. This Twitter show, it's going to be kind of a rundown of the week that was, if maybe you're not plugged in as much as we are and you're not as insane about tracking NFL news. So we're going to go through some news. We're going to check out what's going on Twitter. You people watching us at home, don't be afraid to reach out and hit us up on Twitter. Maybe we'll read something that you sent us. Fun times, but let us start with a little bit of news. All right. Now, Tom Brady, everybody knows it's the biggest story of the offseason in the NFL that he left the New England Patriots. And he went on the Howard Stern show this week. And that's something I never thought would happen as a longtime Stern fan. Brady buttoned up, I thought. But you know what? He's out from under the thumb of Bill Belichick, and he wants to speak his mind and be open. And he was in a 2-hour wide-ranging interview with Stern. There was some good information about the relationship with Belichick, and Brady says there's no hard feelings there. It was just time for a fresh start. But one thing that didn't get as much love, I thought, was a really interesting conversation that Brady said, talking about Kobe Bryant and their relationship and how he related to the late Lakers great. Let's check that out.
Like, Kobe thought he had a long life too, you know?
Right.
And, I mean, nobody loved him. I mean, I loved watching Kobe play. I think in a lot of ways, he and I had the same mentality. And, you know, we had a great connection because of our mindset. And when I look at his life, you know, we all think we're going to live forever.
Right.
But the reality is we don't know when our day's going to come. So I could sit here and go, well, stop playing football so I could, you know, worry about what's going to happen or worry about this or that, instead of saying, you know, why don't I live my life the way that I want and enjoy it, you know, in the ways that are going to be most fulfilling to me, which for me is doing what I love to do. You don't tell a musician stop singing,
Right.
you know, at age of 42. You don't tell a great painter stop painting at 42. Now, if you want to stop, go ahead. But for me, because I feel like I can still play doesn't mean I should just stop playing because that's what everyone's telling me to do.
Chris Wessling, you don't tell a great podcaster to stop potting at age 46, right?
It's amazing. He gets out of New England and you see there's an interesting person in there. I thought these were great points. And Kobe, to me, was more interesting as he got closer to 40 years old and he started to take on new interests in life. it's funny to me what riles us up as sports fans. I remember being in my early 20s delivering mail and listening to sports talk and hearing these guys telling Dan Marino it's time to hang up the spikes. And I thought the unmitigated gall to be sitting behind a microphone and telling a great athlete how to go about his exit from the game after putting in 20, 30 years of work on this sport. So to me, I'm with Tom Brady. You don't tell a great painter when to stop painting. Let him make that decision on his own.
But listening to him in the rest of the interview, it was clear he loves the game. And look, they gave him 2 years guaranteed. So he is signed up through age 44 at the very least. But I think he wanted to play on his terms, and he needed something that could rejuvenate him. I mean, he admitted that he knew going into this season that he probably wasn't going to play with Bill Belichick and the Patriots another year. And you get it. At his age, yeah, he wants to still play football, but I think he felt what was going on in New England was stale. And it makes sense to me. I mean, who wouldn't get sick of this? We're getting sick of each other doing this show every day. Even that's too much.
I will say I
way too
have
much.
At times, I've spoken to one or two painters and sort of said, enough. Like let's do it. And they've listened, and it's been good for their careers. But what I sense is a refresh.
Are you the Turk
Tom
of
Brady.
painters?
Well, there are times when you see it necessary. The work is falling off.
I'm going to need your
easel
easel
put
and your
down
brushes.
the oil paint, please. Right. I need the equipment back with me. You're good. You're 42. But I am excited more than ever for the Brady Bucks experience because of this interview, because it's like I just I've had my suspicion of how it will work out. I still do, but I think he is super galvanized, and he claims zero anger or real emotion over this. But what if there is inside that anger a little bit of a chip that says, New England, you did want to tell me to hang it up. You did want to move on to some degree. That might flip the switch. I'm in for that.
We've talked about this on this podcast. I still believe Brady was very hurt about how New England went about the end of his time there. Basically said, take a walk, and he's going forward and deciding this is my new start. I'm in Tampa. I'm going to make the most of it. But you absolutely know what he wants to do is shred the league, and at the same time that Bill Belichick struggles without him. And I know he told Stern, he said, I got guys there that I love that are the Patriots, but I think he's such a proud competitor, and it's a testament to how well he's played. He's the GOAT, how deep into his 40s he's playing. That there's definitely some bad blood there. I'm still waiting for it, Greg, the tell-all book. Maybe Wickersham writes it over at ESPN.
Well, he said it was very emotional, that he cried on the phone with Bill Belichick, that he cried on the phone with Robert Kraft. I think both sides knew it was time to end his time there. But I do worry a little bit about any narratives that are going to be coming out this summer that's like, well, Tom Brady's trying harder. I mean, how is Tom Brady going to be trying harder than he's been doing in New England? Like, he always finds a source of motivation, and I don't doubt that he's going to use this as it. But like, effort is not something that really has been a problem with him in the past.
Let's check in.
I would add this too, Dan. Well, sorry, go ahead. I was going to say, if anyone's not listened to this, you get some explicit drill down details on Gronk's body. And I mean, if that is something that would move your week along,
in the Stern interview,
tune in.
Yeah.
Yes, some very, very drill down details.
Drill down indeed. Well, but let's check in on Twitter, see what the people are saying. From Justin, the facial hair game is strong with the heroes. It is. We did make a pact. We drew blood and all shook hands and said, let's grow out our beards during this quarantine. A little bit basic. I think a lot of people are doing the same thing. I have to say, I've never in my life let it go like this. And I mean, full on neck beard, just grizzly stuff. The wife hates it, but I'm used to it and I'm kind of into it. And I don't have to shave anymore. It's gone. It's all done. Gotta love it.
I like it. It's an adventure.
Like, we're not getting haircuts either. So I'm hoping to bring back my freshman year of high school, like Kurt Cobain parted in the middle, maybe dye it black down to here by the time we're out of these bunkers.
Need to see that. I'm at the stage where the beard hurts when it touches certain clothing, or just in general, it rubs up against sheets. It hurts a little bit.
Ricky, what about you? Are you shaving right now? What's going on?
What's up, guys? Yeah,
hey.
I am not partaking in this.
That's Ricky Hollywood, of course. Erica Tamposi, our gifted young producer.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the facial hair is staying pretty smooth, actually. I'm having a little trouble growing it out.
That's
oh
good.
my God. I'm glad that I brought you in on this. I'm sorry. You could yell at me after the show. All right. Speaking of Tom Brady, he's got a New Jersey. Obviously, Chris Godwin says, take 12, buddy. Here's Andrew Siciliano with the tweet. Just delivered to my front door. New team, new uniform. Wait a second. Oh, I didn't notice this the first time. They sent it to Siciliano?
Yeah,
What's
I think
happening here?
it's very clear because he's not the only one. There was a swath of in-house media luminaries that were sent, and it sort of, Tom Brady jerseys, and I saw like Playmobil pirate ships sent to people. So, when it comes to the caste system, we did not make the cut. No one tried to influence our take on the Bucs uniform with free garb.
Well, we would,
but
Wes,
you wouldn't
we'd
want
hit him
it,
with
Mark. You say you're a real journo.
I would not accept it. I would have to send it right back to Tampa Bay and say, it's a nice gift, but my opinions will not be altered by free shipments from Southern Florida.
Wes, you going to hit him with a return to sender in a big spot?
Oh, I would take these new jerseys. The old ones, if they had ever sent me the road uniforms, I would probably stomp on it, throw it away, throw it down a sewer, locate the nearest sewer. I mean, those things were offensive. These are pretty cool, and I love the new Color Rush uniforms, the all pewter.
They are gorgeous. That's a little tease. We're going to get to that a little bit later. Gentlemen, you want to do a little bit more news? You want to get in the latest news that we've heard from the NFL, something that just happened yesterday? That's fun. Hot off the presses, Brandin Cooks is on the move again. The Los Angeles Rams wide receiver, now former Rams wide receiver, a member of the Texans. He's the new replacement for DeAndre Hopkins. That's 3 trades in 3 years for Brandin Cooks, Greg Rosenthal, and the terms, a second-round pick goes from Houston back to the Rams. Your thoughts on the deal?
I think it's a big risk. I know it's only a second-round pick. It's really a move down from the 4th to the 2nd. The Texans are giving that up, but Cooks feels like he's a concussion away at any time from the rest of his career really being changed. And I think it's telling that 3 of the best, offensive minds in passing games have traded him away. And yeah, they're getting good returns for him. Now it's gone down. It's gone from a first-round pick to a second-round pick. But the Patriots weren't comfortable keeping him. The Rams, I think, regretted that contract. Ultimately, it's the Rams saying they made a mistake giving that contract to Cooks.
Yeah, Greg, that barking dog totally agrees with your point right there, which I think is important. And, I look at from the Rams side because, it is the largest dead cap hit, I believe, ever, according to Over the Cap, the Brandin Cooks thing. And then you throw in the Todd Gurley dead money. And the Rams,
like $40 million
already,
in dead money on their cap.
Right. And it's so interesting to me where we were, 2 off seasons ago, or even one with the Rams and the Sean McVay experience, that we're really already into a phase 2 of Sean McVay with the Rams, because so much change, so much overhaul, so many draft picks spent on certain players and so many star players out the building. It's going to be a pretty interesting campaign in Los Angeles.
I think it's another bad trade by Bill O'Brien. I think Cooks is a really exciting, fun playmaker. You saw it as recently as 2018. He was a stud for them, for the Rams, and he got paid, and it made sense. But he is, as we've touched on it, major injury liability. It's sad, but it's the worst type of thing. It's a concussion situation. It keeps happening, and the Rams would not be trading Brandin Cooks if he didn't suffer the concussions last year that essentially short-circuited his season. And now Bill O'Brien is taking Cooks in and hoping that doesn't happen again, where history is telling us, and if you track this guy's career, that it's always one hit away. It just seems like a huge risk, Wes, especially with a wide receiver group in Houston with Will Fuller, another guy who can't stay on the field. It just feels like another huge roll of the dice, and it cost them a fairly premium draft pick, which they don't have a lot of right now.
Well, general manager of a $1 billion NFL franchise is not a position in which you typically want a dabbler or a moonlighter. He's already the head coach, and it shows. It shows that he has no general manager experience. He took on David Johnson's bloated salary. He's now taken on Brandin Cooks' bloated salary after career lows across the board last year, under 600 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's not a number 1 receiver like DeAndre Hopkins was, yet he came with the same price tag, a second-round pick, as DeAndre Hopkins. And you wonder, with the 57th pick in the draft, and what we're hearing is the most loaded wide receiver draft in modern history. Why not get a bigger chain moving wide receiver, which you need, not another Smurf wide receiver, which you already have 3 of?
If you look at Cooks over the last few years, he's kind of changed the NFL. I mean, if you look at what happened in the Super Bowl, I always think what happened with him when he got hurt, when he had the concussion in the Super Bowl, how could have that Patriots-Eagles Super Bowl been a little bit different? How could it have been different if he caught that pass from Jared Goff in the red zone late against the Patriots? He got traded for a pick that turned into Ryan Ramczyk in New Orleans. So, like, Cooks is this guy who's, like, traveled around and made big impacts and strange coincidences in a lot of big places.
Let's check out another tweet here. A charmed life. Brandin Cooks has gone from Drew Brees to Tom Brady to Jared Goff to Deshaun Watson. On the opposite side of that spectrum, Larry Fitzgerald, who had a whole bunch of bad QBs before Kyler Murray came around. Mark, we actually had a late night into morning with Ryan Lindley randomly, who was most recently the quarterback's coach, I believe, of the Cleveland Browns. Not a great quarterback, but a guy, if you go to a Waffle House with, he's going to have some stories.
Yeah, he had varied talents from what I witnessed, and an enjoyable guy to speak with. Didn't look to be in quarterback shape at this point, but who knows? Maybe Max Hall is still hanging out there in the wind.
That should be our new tradition. Every February, we go to Indianapolis and hang out with one of the bad Cardinals quarterbacks of the 2010s. Feels like a win.
John Skelton up next.
All right, let's get back to some more uniform talk. Starting, we have another tweet here. Hey, heroes, thanks to all of you keeping us sane during the pandemic. I created a new round of ATN swag, atnshirts.com. What? Where is it? Have we talked about financially how that funnels into our bank accounts?
This is Josh Raymer, who made those. He made those great shirts in the past, sent them to us. And you're right. We need to be tapped into the money supply for that. But Raymer's a great artist and has proven that in the past.
Let me formally do it right now. And Raymer, I love you, support you, but cease and desist. How to do it? Did it? It's been done.
That's aggressive.
Well, how about a little message to the NFL? If you're going to bang that retweet on this old show, let's make some T-shirts, NFL. Let's do it.
There you go.
Let's do that. All right. Let us now move on and talk about uniforms some more. Uniform talk's always fun, especially this time of year. And 2 NFC South teams got into the action. First, let us talk about the Atlanta Falcons. How about that? They have the ATL across the chest. They keep the Falcon logo. Mixed reviews. We had Steve Weish on our show this week. He was not happy about it. And you know what? Somebody had some fun with it. The Carolina Panthers did. Let's check out what the Panthers had to say on Twitter about the Falcons uniform reveal.
No.
I mean,
oh no. All right. That's pretty good. I got to say, that is very mean-spirited, and the cackling, it's really rubbing salt in the wound. That is Adam Sandler. What movie was that? I'm some of the late period Sandler stuff I'm not as plugged in on.
Waterboy, right? Or no?
Is that Bobby Boucher? I don't think so.
I believe
Gotta
so.
be.
I mean, I feel like the Panthers.
You?
Wait, Ricky, what is
help us out here.
movie?
What other
Are you
football
kidding
movies
me?
is he in?
Just,
The
what is
Longest
movie?
Yard. The Longest
Oh,
Yard.
the remake.
Oh yeah,
of
what a
Longest
classic!
Oh,
What a
fair enough.
classic remake that everyone is really plugged into.
This
The
is why we
Longest
have a
Yard.
Well,
millennial
you guys
on the
are
show,
showing
though.
your age. You're showing your age.
Yeah, but
That's
so are you,
fine.
though, because
The
you
original
probably didn't
one
know
was
that there was a
great.
first longest yard.
Yeah, but
Who starred in the first longest yard there, Erica? I'll hit you up with that one. Have you ever heard of Burt Reynolds? I'll ask you that.
I'm just saying, who? When's the last time you heard a conversation about the remake of The Longest Yard? I don't feel like it had a lot of staying
It's all the
power.
rage during the quarantine right now. It's all everyone's talking about.
Okay, so Erica, there was a decade called the 1970s, and many things happened. No, all right, let's move on and talk about the uniform here, because I think it's a fine uniform. Does anybody have a take on the Falcons uniform? I know they caught some heat from certain, but that's just part of the game now with uniform reveals. Everyone says it looks like an Arena League uniform, and then they get used to it, and then it just becomes it is what it is. The ATL thing, I don't know about, but everything else seems fine to me.
I don't know. I,
I
mean,
like
I
the
think
one on the
Panthers-
far right.
Yeah, like I feel like the Panthers Twitter feed always about 2 glasses of rosé in when they do this kind of stuff, but it was a bit aggressive because I don't hate these uniforms. It's the numbers, the way that number 2 hooks down. I feel like we've had a few uniforms with that particular quirk that have been thrown back into the wood pile. So I don't know why those have materialized, but the rest of it, all right, white on white, those look good.
The Bucks also
like
have a new uniform that we liked, especially the pewter on pewter we were into. So I believe we gave the Bucks a collective grade of B+, and I think Weiss dropped a D on the Falcons, but I think that was a little harsh. I'm going to go
Going C+.
B. B. I'm going B. All right. Let's move on. Jadeveon Clowney. He is the big free agent guy still out there. And, back when Wes and Greg did the top 101 free agents, he was number 3 when that thing rolled out a month ago in Indianapolis. And he's still out there. He's looking at it now. He's floated it out there in the news. He's dropping his asking price. It was at $20 million. Now maybe you can get him at $17 million. Now he's not necessarily going to sign a long-term deal. Maybe he'll do a short-term deal. Mark, your Cleveland Browns are said to be in the mix. Mark, what do you think about Clowney, his market, where he ends up, whether you think he's worth it? Tell me everything you think about Jadeveon Clowney right now.
I mean, I think it's a 1-year deal is what I would imagine. And I was told during that Weiss visit by most all of you that he's not a fit for Cleveland because Cleveland just can't, their culture cannot handle another star player. And my thing would be, that's fine, but let's not act like it's a big smart move for team. Like if he, for instance, and Dan, I'll throw it back your way. If he goes to the Jets 4 days from now, are you going to be, whistling about that, saying how great of a deal is? I'm not sure the Jets culture is any better. And my argument is bad teams cannot be relegated to not sign more talent. I mean, if I'm Cleveland, why not give it a 1-year deal? Because you have too many pass rushers, then one of them is going to hit someone with a helmet or someone else is going to get injured and you won't have enough. So I'd say more the merrier. If you have the money, go get him. And I don't buy into this. He should go somewhere else like Seattle or a playoff ready team. But you guys tell me why I'm wrong.
Well, you brought up the Jets. I'll say if the Jets got Jadeveon Clowney, I would be cautiously optimistic because of his playmaking ability. But also, even though Adam Gase maybe doesn't have the best locker room set up, the Browns were one of the historic, bombs last year in terms of the locker room makeup and how things went down. And you want to add another huge ego. Weiss said that Clowney's a guy that kind of has his own solar system around him, and it can affect the locker room a little bit sometimes. I think the Browns have enough big name talent that maybe they just stay where they are. That's my vibe on that.
Way back when Greg and I did that free agency list, I thought the best fit was the Tennessee Titans, a team with a very strong head coach and no locker room issues, and a team that all of these AFC playoff contenders are chasing the Chiefs now. And that's how do you get Patrick Mahomes? Well, Jadeveon Clowney is one of the few guys who's shown the ability to dominate games as a pass rusher and run stuffer. I think he would be a great fit for the Titans.
I wonder how long he's going to be a free agent because he had the microfracture surgery. He had more injuries last year. Our team's going to want to give him a physical. They're going to have to wait till buildings are reopened. Like, who knows how late practice is going to get pushed back this season. You look at the teams with a lot of salary cap space, and the Eagles stand out to me. They've kind of been lying there in the weeds. They have $27 million in cap space, and it just feels like an Eagles type of move to give Clowney a big 1-year deal and just see what happens in 2020.
And maybe Clowney has to finally deliver that huge full season where he has 15 sacks and kills the opposing offenses in the run and stays on the field for 15 or 16 weeks to get the massive deal that he thought he was going to get this year. Maybe a short-term deal is kind of fair at the end of the day when you look at what he's done in his career. Clowney is not the only big name still on the market. Jameis Winston,
who lost his job. What did he say? Kudos to me that Tom Brady signed with the Bucks. Hey, that's a good. Hey, if I'm only going to be replaced by the greatest of all time, I guess I'm second greatest of all time, pretty much.
So Winston's out there, hoping that somebody gives him a chance. The 5,000-yard, 30 touchdown, 30 interception quarterback of 2019. Here's a tweet he sent out this week, showing people that he is working at it. There you go. Look out! Hey now! There he is. Get out of the way. And then David Carr, our own David Carr of NFL
slim.
Network, he does look fit, chimes in, stop paying your friends to train you. Stop. Get some help. I've been in a lot of collapsing pockets, and never once did I have defenders just flying at my head. Whoa, Carr, putting them in a body bag in a big spot. Here's Winston's reply. Hey, bro, I have nothing but love for you. Reach out to help or mind your business, though. Woo-wee. I've been working with my personal trainer since I was 14. We built this from the bottom, and we're still building. Treat others how you want to be treated, bro. Hashtag La Hater. Hashtag social distancing. David Carr's been on our show. Very nice guy. Good dude. Good husband. Good analyst. But I'm kind of with Winston on this one. You kind of come after Jameis on social media. Maybe don't know the whole story. I'm going to sign with Team Winston here.
Well, how could you be against them with the hashtag social distancing, wrapping it all up in a nice bow right at the end?
The guy's thinking about more than just himself.
I wonder where he's going to go. There is no good fit. We've got the screen saying best fit. I keep saying Denver for almost any quarterback that's out there, whether that would be Cam or Dalton. Like, that just seems like a good opportunity. They should take a swing at one of these guys, but you can't find many other good options.
I don't know if you
I'm
pursue
with you,
that he's a
Mark.
backup. What about like Buffalo? I mean, like they have Matt Barkley sitting behind Josh Allen. I mean, the Falcons have Matt Schaub, which they seem to be married to Matt Schaub until the end of days. But I mean, there are upgrades available out there, and there's a bunch of teams with like questionable guys at number 2 if you're willing to be a backup.
How about a team that saw its whole season sink because they didn't have a good backup last year? The Pittsburgh Steelers, who are now kidding themselves that Mason Rudolph can be a good backup. He sunk their season. Go get a better quarterback.
Great call, Wes. That is a perfect landing spot because I think Winston is problematic for teams like the Bills, for instance, who have a young quarterback they believe in, or at least outwardly they're saying this is our guy. You bring in Winston, it sends a mixed message. But with the Steelers, there's nobody that's doubting that the Steelers still think Big Ben is their quarterback. Winston slots in as just a guy that you have as a security blanket, a guy that can galvanize your team if he gets hot. That makes so much sense, Wes. And I guess it depends what their salary cap situation is and whether they think he's any good or not, Winston. I know he got LASIK surgery, so what's not to like about Jameis?
Would Winston want to go to Pittsburgh, though? Let's say Big Ben does want, his history is he'll play most, 15, 16 games a year, and he might have 2 years of uninterrupted play. Doesn't Winston want to go somewhere if he has any sort of a choice where he can rebuild his career and become a starter again?
But Winston's 38 years old. I mean, Big Ben's 38 years old. And last time we saw him on the sideline, he looked like he'd been retired for 20 years. That feels like a guy you definitely want to be behind on a depth chart, because how much longer is Big Ben playing? Let's be honest.
Yeah, it'd be sort of like a Teddy Bridgewater situation, right? That you'd have a chance to take the reins of a great franchise if Big Ben hits the end of the road and Winston's sitting there.
I missed Wes, burying Mason Rudolph in a big spot, so that was good to get back on the show.
Yeah, it's been a while.
I think he did a fine job of burying himself, Greg.
So, for that matter, so did Devlin Duck Hodges. Nobody's talking about him as the answer anymore either. Is Devlin on a roster next year?
The Steelers aren't even considering him, but they're actually talking about Rudolph as their number 2.
Yeah, maybe that is not the answer. Another big guy in the market, of course, Cam Newton. The former NFL MVP, who was let go by the Panthers, looking for a home. Greg, what's a good fit for Cam Newton?
Well, I'll throw out Denver again. I really do think John Elway should take a swing on him. And I do wonder about the Chargers. There is a route where they don't take the quarterback at number 6 overall, that they take a franchise left tackle that they've been looking for a while and really improve what's a pretty impressively rebuilt offensive line. And then you just stop convincing yourself Tyrod Taylor's a starter and you just go for it and you go Cam Newton. That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, unless Cam Newton is courted by another team and then you're stuck actually having to start Tyrod Taylor. I mean, if I'm Cam Newton, I wonder if it gets, because it's like you're mentioning, you can't get into a building for a physical. You can't do all the stuff you need to do to convince a team in person that you're ready and healthy. Is this a guy that just is smartest to wait for the inevitable major injury that we get in August or September? Or say August, and then bang, you walk right in as an unquestioned starter for a team. And
the Jay Cutler route with the Dolphins.
Sure.
What Cutler did when Tannehill got hurt a couple years ago. Yeah, that's interesting. And Broncos fans are very in their feelings on Drew Lock and people out in the media not believing that he's the guy. But I'm curious if those same Broncos fans, if they're okay with what's back behind Drew Lock right now, or if they would want Cam Newton, because I feel like Newton, Greg, that's another one. That's a great landing spot, and it gives them cover and gives Newton some time to rehab and get completely right and absorb a new playbook potentially. It makes sense to me.
It's just tricky, as you mentioned. Like, you bring him in, and he's the best quarterback in the building. It's like the Bills. If they brought in Jameis Winston, he'd be the best quarterback in the building, and it's a tricky spot to be in.
Oh, please! You got to be kidding me, Greg. You said that for effect, but I know you can't possibly believe that.
Hey,
they're not
Josh Allen and the whole
franchise
making. Hey, where are all these GMs who agree with you on Jameis Winston?
I'm just saying, hey, who could question, the pristine decision making and accuracy from Josh Allen in his biggest moments of last year? Who would dare go against that?
We're halfway to bingo. Wes has buried Mason Rudolph, and Greg has buried Josh Allen. What's next? All right,
Mark being upset about some Browns opinion. Here we go.
All right, I am fine today. Continue on.
Let's hit the mailbag. We prompted our fine listeners of the Around the NFL podcast to connect with us on Twitter. I know they weren't going to. I didn't even check. I just know that they're going to have some hammers. So let's get into it, starting with Mark Delaney. What's something the pandemic has taken from each of you and something it's given each of you, Wes?
Well, I think it's taken the ability to go out and have a nice dinner out, like a night alone with your significant other. That has been taken from me. I think it's given perspective, especially for me. I've thought a lot more about compassion and empathy as qualities we need, and have not been so visible in the forefront of this country for a while. So I think that would be one thing that compassion would be one thing.
I like that. All right, what else we got? Next.
I think it's taken away. Let's go to the next question.
Yeah, let's just keep moving. El Jefe, two totally different types of questions. One, if you could take a player from any team to add to your team's roster, who would you take and why? And number two, where would you like to visit post-quarantine, with or without family? Mark Sessler.
I'll answer number two. It kind of links to what we were discussing before. Is I would like to go to a place, a darkly lit place with a jukebox, and just drop like $20 in there with friends, have some beers, and be out in society again. I feel it's as intellectually stimulating as it is to speak to a 7 and 9 year old nonstop for 23 days in a row. I might need more from the neck up.
I like that. I would like to be at a Yankee game with 45,000 other people and not worry about, a green microbe destroying everything. That would be great.
Might be a while. Breath for that.
Yeah. All right, next. Noah, Mark versus Dan, who will have the better season in 2020, Mayfield or Estarn? Good question. Greg.
Well, Mayfield's got the better people around him, and he has a better track record. I'm still buying Baker Mayfield stock because of what he showed as a rookie, and all the problems that the Jets have had, whether it's offensive line or lack of weapons. It's like the coaches. I don't see them fixing it. It's kind of a grisly looking roster right now for the Jets on offense.
They have work to do. So many bad drafts over the past 10 years, whether it was Big Mac or John Idzik, that has been ruinous to the franchise. So yes, I still have a lot of optimism about Darnold, but at the same time, the idea that you could count on him to be a star right now, I just don't know. And he got such a bad break with the mono thing last year. I'm really excited to see his year 3, but also there's trepidation. How could a Jet fan not have trepidation? What's
next? It just seems like both of them need like a total mulligan for last year. But having met Sam Darnold at LAX while he was eating a plate of eggs, it warmed me to him quite a bit. I'm that easy to influence. I quite like Sam Darnold, but I'm going Mayfield.
All right, I'll go Darnold. There we go. Let's see what happens. Ed Cummins asks, what sports movie, first football then any other sport, is your favorite of all time? Well, I've written about it on NFL.com. In fact, how it's atrocious that there are just not a lot of good football movies. I don't care. You could tell me about some of the older films. We brought up one earlier, The Longest Yard. In the modern era, there's just been not a lot of great football movies. They did a bracket, like a March Madness bracket on NFL.com, and Necessary Roughness, the Scott Bakula vehicle from 1993, was like a 2 seed. It's like that's what we're dealing with right now. My favorite sports movie of all time. I'm going to go Major League, the Cleveland Indians story starring Charlie Sheen and Tom Berenger. Just an awesome baseball story and really funny as well. What about you guys?
I think
like
you
The
nailed
Natural.
that. Okay, that's a
Go
good
ahead.
one. I was going to say that I'm with you, Dan, that sports movies just haven't been done well in general. And for football, I think you'd have to look to a TV show. Friday Night Lights was probably the best thing done about football. But generally, when you're talking sports documentaries, 30 for 30, ESPN's done a great job with those. HBO's done some great work with documentaries, but I'm with you. I don't think they've made great sports movies as a general rule.
I mean, I feel like there's been great sports movies, but football in particular is the one that really you wonder why you can't be done. And then there was that awful television show on HBO, Ballers. You got The Rock in it, and you got the real uniforms and everything, and somehow you still can't stick the landing. Maybe there's something to it where it's a difficult sport to marry. I did like Rudy. Rudy's a nice film. It's a good
Rudy's
picture.
I mean, I wanted to go down the road of you didn't play the game because we get hit with that all the time. But I wonder how many of these screenwriters and producers and directors like spent even, 15 minutes inside a huddle playing, and then suddenly they're giving us the story about a football team and it just does not connect on multiple levels. And that, I wonder if that's why.
All right, let's
Remember
check
the
out a couple more
Titans.
tweets here.
Hmm.
All right, here we go. Dan, the master of the power rankings, would love to see you do a power ranking on who is coping the best with the lockdown. Hope you are healthy and safe. Thanks for the 5 podcasts a week, and it helps take blah, blah, blah. Dan, thank you, Daniel McManley. And we have another one. Which member of the ATL team is handling the COVID-19 crisis the worst? Is it Mark? I don't think so. I think Mark's been completely under control. Oh, it's almost I don't want to say disappointing, but Mark, a little unhinged by COVID-19, maybe would have been good for the podcast. But I think in general, we're all taking it pretty well. I think Erica's been a little bit sloppy. I think she's struggling at times.
Yeah.
You could kind of just see it in her eyes, but the guys are doing really well.
The guys
What?
are doing very well.
Power rankings, I'm on top. I am thriving.
Wait. Well, how does your body feel about that statement?
Wes, that's personal. just because I like to cope with a little bit of wine, I think that's okay.
Okay.
Once the
I think
social
there might be-
distancing is, go ahead, Greg.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, once the social distancing and the shelter in place thing ends, I'm just going to take a drive over to Ricky's place and head right to Betty Ford. So we'll get this thing all straightened out.
I think I have something maybe like a little bit in common. It might explain Mark's. It's like maybe Mark's been waiting for this to arrive forever. He's been talking about.
Well,
like,
yeah, I mean, not all
some
aspects
sort
of
of
it, Greg, but
some sort of disruption. I'm just saying, like almost like we deserve it. Like it's been too easy for too long, and we need some struggle. And so now that it's here, maybe Mark, it's almost like a feeling of relief. I don't know.
I don't know if relief is the first word I'd use, but it is fair that I would say that whenever we do our sandwich props, that I've mentioned global meltdown scenarios probably 40 to 50 times, lost every one of those props. This one is sort of what's been in the mind for a while. I am not thrilled with some elements of it, but I don't think any of us are in meltdown territory. I'd say we were handling it rather calmly. Again, I need to speak to adults, not just children. That is my major issue.
It is a little bit of a wink by the universe toward you, Mark, that you've been predicting some type of unplugging of the grid meltdown for society for years, and then what happens? It's out of football season, so it just costs you.
Well, when you operate as a seer, you're seeing it is something on the horizon. You don't know, pinning it down to one date, which is what you guys were trying to get me to do, is not how this how this part of the career works. Well, I'm just saying that it's. Please, I think we get it. I nailed the prediction, and start listening from here on out.
As always,
When
any
you and
Mark
all the
Sessler
other visionaries
prediction,
get together.
any Mark Sessler predictions is a horseshoe and hand grenades affair. If it's close, he nailed it.
Well, you have issues with that. I'm sorry.
All right, let us move on. Wes, if you've been listening to our podcast the last 2 days, we have a little top of the show teased that this show was coming, the Twitter show, and Wes promised memes. I mean, he said memes are coming to the Around the NFL Twitter show. So here's one. This is big right now. They call it, the top 9, and you can only pick 3. What is it called? Ricky, I need your influencer millennial hat on again. What do they call this thing? A 9 box?
Yeah, no, it's like you can only pick 3. They don't call it. Like
I didn't know if it
9
had
box.
I didn't know if it had a shorthand name.
No, you can call it the 9 box. Call it the 9 box.
The 9
Show your
box
age,
is
man.
here. QB, wide receiver combos. What a grouping. Kyler and DeAndre, Brady and Evans, Ryan and Julio, Breeze and Thomas, Hill and Mahomes, Wilson and Lockett, Rodgers and Adams, Dak and Amari. And don't act like you don't know the last one, number 9, because Greg made sure it was on the 9 box. It is Jared Stidham and some guy named Olszewski.
Gunnar Olszewski, come on. He's number 1. I'm taking him over that, Tom Brady painted into that Bucks uniform awkwardly. Give me a break.
I think our social team did an excellent job, Greg, doing what they could because he hasn't worn the uniform yet. But I just want everyone to know that the podcast as a whole appreciates what the social team does.
Yeah, stop throwing
So who
hand
are your
grenades
3?
at our in-house employees, Greg, please.
It
Can I
wasn't
see the
about
box
that.
again?
It
I
was
do want to
just
pick.
like-
I do want to pick here. Let's see the 9 box again, if we could, Jason Kleinman, our video producer today, and he's doing a great job.
But Breeze and Michael Thomas, come on.
I go
Breeze and Thomas.
Mahomes and Tyreek Hill, first round pick. First pick.
Yeah, it's got to be 4, 5, and 3. I'll go 3, 4, 5.
I agree with that.
We should do a different 9 box next week. Head coaches with the most swagger on the sidelines.
Oh,
And
I
then
like
we'll
that.
really
That feels
dig
up our tree. Yeah.
I just, I get the feeling that we need to connect with the kids with more 9 boxes. Here's hot takes on Twitter. One of these things is not like the others. Looking at you, 9. Ooh, shot across Rosenthal's bow.
Hey, they won't be laughing in December when Olszewski's going down the field for 90 yards.
1, 4, 5 here. Good job by Georgie, who is getting involved. I don't remember who 1 was. Got to
That
be
was
4,
Kyler
5,
Murray.
7. Okay. 4, 5, 7. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good choice by Jim Smith.
Just
Russ
repeating
and
the numbers.
Lockett are getting underrated here.
Oh
You
yeah,
think so?
I like 5.
5's nice job. Nice job by 5. Ricky, what
I
else
think
are the
your,
kids
your
doing
eyes
on
are
Twitter
naturally
right
your eyes are naturally drawn to certain of those boxes. So where they place them is unfair if you're some of those combinations.
Interesting take.
now? Ricky, what else are the
Yeah.
kids doing on Twitter right now?
They're
And on
doing,
social during this?
they're
COVID
doing a
thing?
lot of those 9 boxes. The 9 boxes
9
are
boxes are
big right
huge,
now.
right?
Yeah, they're big.
Why,
Or,
speaking
like,
of
whose
boxes,
house-
why did you put yourself in a huge rectangle box
I'm
and
not
the 4 stars
controlling
of the
this.
show are in tiny little boxes? What is that
You
all
know?
about?
It's just how the world works. I don't know. I didn't
Apparently.
choose this. I didn't
No,
choose
that's
All right.
not right at all.
All right. Okay, bye, Erica. Good seeing you.
Like, get me out of here.
Let's get
Okay,
back
control
to a
room.
4 box. How about
Let's
that? That's my favorite box, the 4 box.
Seriously, thank you,
All right.
Control Remote.
Really,
That
I do
took
love
long
that.
enough.
All right.
That was a
One
fun
final
meme.
thought before we go. Again, and before our one final thought, I want to say good job, Wes. Wes, you promised it and you delivered.
Well, that's what mailmen do, Dan.
Well said.
Rain, sleet, or snow. Before our one final thought, thank you to all the listeners for supporting this show all the time, but especially during this terrible time in human history. You guys have been like super plugged in on the podcast and keeping in touch with us on Twitter and on the Around the NFL subreddit. Very active. And again, thank you to everybody on the NFL side of things here. This is a really pretty incredible, again, that we're able to do a live broadcast with people all over the city in their apartments and homes, just helping to make this thing hum. No glitches so far. The only glitches have been our glitching when we weren't the broadcasters we needed to be. But so far, and I don't want to jinx it, no massive technical glitch. So don't blow it, whoever it is. Just going to say one final thought.
Adding
now.
a nice layer of pressure to everyone's job.
All right. Mark Sessler, your final thought before we sign off for the weekend.
Well, it didn't make our news rundown, but the XFL, informed word people of the XFL that it's essentially been shut down. And I guess for me, I'd like to see that when we get back to normal, that either the XFL or some sort of developmental league becomes concrete. And I get that some people aren't into it or the level of play. I thought the XFL's was pretty good. And what I really liked about it was, we're starting to incorporate players from Europe and other parts of the world into the NFL. That would be a good place for them to operate to some degree. I love the fact that they were allowing for fringe, kind of edgy, creative rule changes, which I think impacts ultimately how the NFL looks at its own game. And for all that to go away is a problematic until we get a year where there aren't 5 or 6 undrafted players totally dominating when no one decided to draft them. Then the scouting operation of football continues to need improvement, and the XFL makes some sense on that level.
All right, Greg, your final thought.
Yeah, I read a book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl pretty early in our lockdown. And he writes about, maybe searching for meaning rather than happiness. This is not these are not happy times, but I think we can find meaning in them. And we're obviously all doing that with our families, but you also do that through work. And this show has a lot of meaning for me, for all of us. And it's been awesome to see for the listeners too. Like, we are lucky to be able to do this every day and have not a distraction, but more just like something to do that it doesn't have like world changing meaning, but it means a lot to us. And it means a lot to us that people have been kind of along with us for the ride.
Well put, Mr. Rosenthal. One final thought, Chris Wessling.
Well, the music world lost a titan this week. Mark may choose Bukowski as his favorite mailman turned writer. Mine is John Prine, who was one of the best songwriters this country has ever seen, like Bob Dylan and Canada's Leonard Cohen. He's one of those legends who younger musicians kind of bend over backwards to cover their songs because they identify with the lyrics. And I think our talented songwriters inspire in the same way that our best novelists do. They show you how to walk in someone else's shoes for a while and what it's like to be another human. And John Prine excelled at that.
Well said, West. And
yeah, Dan, I feel
finally,
like my XFL comment feels like the thoughts of a simpleton after hearing these two following items. I thought I don't know. I missed the
It got in the show. It checked the box. It was good, Mark. We should have
not what the world's focused on at the moment. So
I know you're thinking about the XFL a lot right now, Mark. So yes, let's bookend it with a callback to yesterday's podcast where Connie Fox was on the show, and we all came up with our house quarantined pad of choice, and we each had 4 names. And as you could see, everybody, a wide range between artists and chefs, actors, musicians, and we all had one NFL player in there as well. And listen, one final thought here is the comments under the tweet, the replies, it was a no-brainer. The old Zeuser nailed this one with the Grohl, Hader, Fitzmagic, and Jenna Fisher quadrant. And listen, I'm humbled that it was such a runaway in the replies, but also I don't think it takes anything away from you guys, what you were able to do with your groups, and very, varied and fun and interesting. But the people spoke, and there's only one house that truly rules, and it's Kansas Manor.
I mean, I will when I start to really question the existence of God, it's typically hinging off of like a braggy Dan tweet, like he put out there earlier about his house being picked by our 98% male audience that liked like his bro-ish characters in there. House number 3, by the way, if you listen to yesterday's podcast, house number 3 is not looking for a lot of hangers on. In fact, we need less eyeballs on that house. What's going to go down there will be interesting. And we're not looking for to pack in 600 or 700, 800 jabronis to witness what is about to unfold.
Does it matter at all? Does it make it worse or better, Mark, that when I send out tweets like that, it's almost always to get a reaction from you, to get those eyeballs rolling out of your skull?
It does. And it's what I do is I'll walk around my backyard for 10 or 12 minutes and be like, don't tweet back because you could drop a bomb in reverse, but just let it go and let Dan have his little moment in the sun with Pam from The Office. It's like, it's just an absurdity. And by the way, if you start to look at the results on that poll since yesterday's podcast, House one was an early
Yeah.
runaway hit. But
Oh, yeah.
I would say take it to the voting officials, because that's your count. Other houses are catching up. 3's starting to catch up. Greg's is getting a lot of pop. Weston Collins is doing well. Erica's is on fire. So you're seeing it through Dan eyes, and that's not that we're not connected to reality always when that happens.
It sounds like
I'm
maybe
done.
you just nominated yourself for a homework assignment. Let's tally up the votes, the replies on Twitter. Thank you, Mark.
Ouch.
Last tweet before we go. Let's see what we got. Simon Winstansley. How dare you, Dan Hansis? Ballers is Simon, do not get me started on Ballers. I don't know what I know NFL has a tie-in with HBO through Hard Knocks, but that's an NFL Films joint. That's a terrible show. That's a bad job by HBO, who had one of the greatest, most charismatic stars in The Rock, a guy with football experience. It's about being an agent. They had a chance basically to right the wrongs of Arliss, another terrible HBO show about sports, and they just dropped the ball. And I love HBO home box office, and Hard Knocks is one of the great shows of all time, and they are the premium cable GOAT, but they dropped the ball in a big spot on Ballers. And I got to be honest with you, we have a saying on this show, La Ravil Magnifico, when someone says something and unwittingly reveals way too much about themselves that makes you not be able to look at them the same way ever again. Simon, I'm looking at you, buddy. Ballers, not
Buried.
Ouch.
Wow, he just buried Simon,
Well,
who is the one person still unflagging support for Ballers.
All right. That's it. Good stuff. Have a nice weekend, everybody. Check us out 5 days a week on our podcast, and maybe this thing will be back next week, the video show. I don't know. Hit us up on the subreddit and in our replies. Let us know if you like today's show, and you will be able to find it elsewhere. We'll send out a link later on today. So thank you. This is Dan Hansis signing off for Quiet Storm, the mailman, the old boss, Ricky Hollywood behind the glass. And again, thank you to all our NFL colleagues across LA, the Southland, for their help with today's show. It was great. Flawless. What a team. Until next week.